In this presentation, we will be discussing the FTK2 interface overview, all of the pieces that make up the user interface, and some of the tips and tricks for navigating around that interface. We will assume that you've already got a case built, and if you have not seen how to do that, there is an accompanying presentation on user and case management. So to begin, we will talk briefly about the concept of panes and how panes are used to make up the individual tabs within the FTK2 interface, which we also call frame sets. To begin with, we'll start on the Explore tab. The Explore tab is the standard file tree structure that you see in most forensic tools. Each tab in FTK2 is built out of a number of different panes. These panes can range from a tree pane to a properties pane to a hex interpreter pane, a file content pane, a file list pane, etc. Think of each one of these panes as a separate piece of a frame set, which we know as a tab. Each of these panes is dockable, meaning we can tear it loose from its position. We can move it to another monitor. We can reposition it anywhere on the UI that we'd like. In addition to that, we can delete unneeded or unnecessary panes from a view. So if I were to go to the View menu and remove all of these panes, in fact you will see that what is left is the underlying shell that is the frame set or pane of the Overview tab. If I want to repopulate that, I'll simply go to the View menu and I can start selecting things that I want to populate this individual frame set. Now if I want to restore it back to its default, I'll just go ahead and go to the frame set layout and down to restore, and this particular frame set or tab has been restored to all of its default panes. So on this particular frame set or tab I have, which is the Explore tab, I have the evidence item tree. On the Overview tab, the Explore tree or evidence item tree has been replaced with an overview tree, and we'll get to that in a second. On the email tab, it's an email tree, and so forth. So again, think of the individual components of a frame set or a tab as user definable. Once you get them like you would like them to include their actual size and position, you can go to the View menu down to frame set layout and you can save a particular tab, or you can in fact save all of your tabs. If you'd like to create a new tab, perhaps a user-defined tab with custom content, you simply pick a tab that you would like as a template or a starting point, go to the View menu, go down to Frame Set Layout, and Add. Give this new tab a name, any name will do, and you'll see that this new tab will be created for you. When it's created, it's going to have the same items populating it as the tab you used to create it as a template, but you can now add and remove from this just like any other tab. So let's go back to the Explore tab and I'll give you a brief overview of each of the tabs and what they contain. So beginning on the Explore tab, we again see the file list tree or evidence items tree, and this has a new concept to it which we will call quick picks. If I browse down into this folder structure someplace, and I'll go down into the user Wes Mantooth's user folder, you will see that at any location that I am currently sitting on, I will see in the file list all of the files and folders in that location. However, I will not see contents of the folders below the current location that I'm clicked on. So in this particular list, I have 33 items present in my file and folder list. By using the quick picks, I can tell FTK2 that I would like to see in my file list everything from this location down. So by hitting this little icon, I turn it green, and everything from this location down is now in my file and folder list. So now I have 146 items. In addition to that, I can user select different locations in the folder structure and have those items also populate my file list. So here I've chosen Dracula's folder, and I'm going just the Dracula folder. If I click on this without a control button, I get this location down, and now I've got Wes Mantooth's documents also. So I'm continuing to add things to this file list as I go along. If you want to select individual items, you can hold the control button down and you can select just those items as you'd like. To get the entire evidence tree, I simply go all the way to the top, and I click the top of the tree with the quick pick, and I will now have everything from this location down selected. So you've probably noticed at this point a number of different icons in this tree. The green icon that you see here is a green arrow with a green folder in front of it, indicates that everything from this location down has been selected. If I were to drop down here, back down to Wes Mantooth's Documents folder, and unselect that location, you'll see that those items have been removed from the tree and also from the file list, and the parent, Wes Mantooth profile folder, is now a yellow folder icon with a green arrow behind it. The green arrow indicating that the Wes Mantooth, the contents of that folder, are still selected. However, something below this level, meaning this particular location, is no longer selected. So it gives you a visual reference as to whether things are or not selected at different levels. So I'll go back up to the top and I will click the top of the evidence tree to turn this entire tree green, indicating that everything from the top down has been selected. If you want a single partition, you'd simply turn it off and select that single partition from that location down would now be selected in the file list. You can temporarily suspend these quick picks by using this icon in the top left corner, turning the quick picks off and on. Now when I hit this button, my file list will go back to a single selection file list. So whatever location I am currently selected on is what is represented in the file list. However, my previous selections in the quick pick are maintained and are just simply inactive. If I want to turn them back on, I go back to the quick picks button, and now my file list has the previous selected items in it. Okay, so let me go back to the top and re-enable the entire tree so we have all the items in my file list, and we'll run through the rest of this pane. So again, we have the Explore tree on the left here. We have a file list, which we'll get into more in just a second. We have a Properties window in the bottom left corner, and that has another sub-tab, which would be the hex interpreter if we are trying to interpret hex values. So the Properties is going to give us file properties and permissions. Hex interpreter is going to assist us in interpreting hex values. And lastly, in the bottom right is the File Content Viewer. The File Content Viewer is actually made up of several different viewers, all built into one pane. First off would be the hex viewer. That would show us the data in its hex values. Next would be a text viewer, which would show us the data interpreted as any number of text formats. Next would be a filtered text, which will give us the INSO filtered text view and filter out non-readable ASCII characters. And lastly would be the natural view. The natural view being used for things that are being viewed by INSO, the outside-in viewer from Stellent. So let me go down into my users document folder here, and we'll pick a couple different things just to show you the different viewers. Actually, let me go to the top and disable the quick pick so we have a little bit less of a mess to deal with here. And I'll go down into the users documents folder. You'll see when I pick a Word document, the viewer that is chosen is the natural viewer, and by default it uses that outside-in viewer from Stellent. If I were to pick an HTML document, for example, the viewer that is chosen would be a web viewer that's built in. And there's also a media player viewer that we'll get into in just a minute. So depending on the item that I select, the viewer automatically switches to the correct viewer. And this is true of all of the different panes that utilize the viewer pane, or all the different tabs, I mean, that utilize the viewer pane. Additionally, in the Explore tab, we have a filter manager, which we will get into in a separate presentation, where we design and implement filtering. And we have our standard menu items. There are also a number of toolbars present on the file list, and these again would be the same on all the different panes that use the file, or all the different tabs that use the file list pane. The first button in the toolbar checks everything in the current list. So I currently have 33 items in my file list where I'm currently selected. If I utilize this button, you will see that everything in that list will check. You can see that I have 51 items total checked in my case, and that's because prior to starting this presentation, I had a few additional items checked in my case. I don't know where those items are, and if I wanted to take action based on only these items, I would need to first go and find those items and uncheck them. That's where these next two buttons come in. This button unchecks everything in the current list, which would uncheck all 33 of these listed items. And this button unchecks everything in the entire case, no matter where it is in the folder and file structure. So by utilizing this button, I will uncheck just those items, leaving the 18 other items someplace else in my case, or I could have simply used this button and unchecked everything. Next to the Uncheck All in Case button is a Create Bookmarks button. This would be the same functionality as if you were to right-click a file and choose Create a Bookmark. Creating bookmarks is a way to segregate evidence within our image and begin to report on it, and we'll get into that heavily in a later presentation. The next button over is the Copy Special, and that's where we copy all of this data, or some of this data, about a file out instead of copying the file itself. If we want the file itself, we would simply right-click and choose Export File. But if we want information about the file, such as its name, MD5 hash, category, path, etc., we would use the Copy Special. Now the Copy Special function allows you to copy it out to a clipboard and then paste that clipboard contents into something like a spreadsheet. And you can simply hit the Column Settings button to choose which items you want to copy to your clipboard. And we'll get into column settings more in just a minute. In addition to the Copy Special, I have the ability to skip the copy and paste functionality and write this data right to a tab-separated value sheet. So here in the next button over is Export File List. Same functionality as Copy Special, however, it gives me the ability to export this data out right out to a tab-separated value spreadsheet. So I'll just call this date and time, and it's going to be a TSV file type. And then down here is where I choose the kinds of things that I want to export out. First off, I have to pick a target item, and I can do only the single highlighted item, all items that have been checked in my case, all currently listed items, or every file item available in the case. I'll do all currently listed items, which should give me 33 according to this number right here. Then I pick in the column settings window a predefined column setting, or I can pick from a list where I can add and subtract to those predefined settings. So here in my pull down list I have my normal predefined settings, and I can add any one of these columns that are available to me in FTK to this list. You can see right now I've got the object name, item number, path, file type, physical size, logical size, MD5 hash, SHA-256, created, modified, and accessed. Perhaps in this case I would like to remove everything but the object name, created, modified, and access date. So I'll highlight those, remove, and you can see just those items are going to now be sent out to my file list. So I'll say OK to that and hit save, and now out in my destination location I would have a tab separated value spreadsheet with that information. In addition to using tabs or the column settings for exporting information about files, we can also use it to display information about files in our file list. You'll see right here in the pull down next to the export file list I have my column settings manager. I have a pull down where I can apply predefined column settings, or I can go into the manager here and I can make a new one. So I'll call this column setting Ken, and I'll have the item number, I'll have the object name, path, and perhaps I will pick the MD5 hash. And I set it up the way I want it and then simply save it, say OK, and now when I'd like to apply those column settings, I simply apply them just like that. In addition, when I'm doing a copy special, I can now utilize that predefined column setting. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the Explore tab. Let's bounce over to the Overview tab and talk about that now. If you're an FTK 1X user, you're probably familiar with the Overview tab and something we called containers. Well, in FTK 2, the containers have now been replaced with a tree structure to give us the ability to further refine our scope of what we're looking for. So in the FTK 1X world, where we would have had a graphics container, we now have a graphics folder. And below that we can divide the graphics into raster graphics and vector graphics. We can further divide those into their subcategories, such as GIFs, JPEGs, and so forth. I can go and clear down into a specific file type if I would like, based on this new category structure. If I want to see all of the graphics, I simply click on the appropriate parent and I will see all of the items from that level. So this gives me the ability to go into all the different categories that FTK has categorized for you and placed in this structure. Some of the other interesting categories we see in here are documents. So we have our HTML and XML documents, Microsoft Documents, and Microsoft Documents broken out further into RTF and Word, and that's broken out further into Word in 2000 and 2003, all depending on what you have present in your image. To give you the quick view of the other viewer I mentioned, let's go into the HTML documents and go in there and pick one of the HTML images that's in here. And you'll see that I'm now looking at that HTML page, and it's using the web viewer instead of outside-in viewer from Stellent. Now, one word of caution here, this was repopulated from the internet, since I am currently connected to the internet, so you want to use caution when doing that. One nice feature of this web viewer is that I can disable external hyperlinks. So if right now they are disabled, and any hyperlinks that I click on, I cannot go out to the web with those hyperlinks. However, if I disable or enable the web hyperlinks, I can now go right out to the web and use it built into the tool. So be aware of that little button and how it can help you. The button next to that will disable cascading style sheet formatting if you're looking at something that utilizes that formatting and you want to disable it. Okay, so continuing on down, let's take a look at something else that will utilize this built-in viewer. Let's go down into the multimedia category, down into video, and I'll go down into the RIF AVI category. Now I've got a single video in here. If I click that video, you'll see that I'm now using the media player built into FTK2, and I can simply click on the play button here and it'll play that media file within the tool. If I want to export it out of the tool and play it outside of FTK, I can do that simply by double-clicking the file, and it will open up the external associated program and play that file outside of the tool. So let me go ahead and get off of that. Just above multimedia, you can see that we've actually broken out internet and chat files into their own category. We've got OS and system files, all kinds of different things broken out into their own categories for you on the Case Overview tab. Other categories of interest might be the other known encryption files. If we open that up, we can see that we've got our EFS encrypted files, if any exist on the drive. We've got EFS key files to include the file encryption key, which will give us fast access to knowing who or which user has encrypted the items on the drive. We've also got the private key and protect files right here for us should we need to export those out for use in other tools. Our emails here, executables, folders, you name it, it's all present on the case overview under file categories. Just above file categories, we have the file extensions. So here we've got every file in FTK broken out by its file extension. Now it's important to know that FTK categorizes all of the files that it comes across based on their header. Now in this case, we've got files categorized based on their extension regardless of what their header identifies them as. So we very likely have JPEGs in here with GIF extensions and GIFs with JPEG extensions, so forth. But it gives you a quick overview of the files based on their extensions. Above that we have file items. We've got our number checked, total evidence items, and unchecked items, just to give you quick access to some of those. And then at the very bottom here we've got our bookmarks, if we had created any, and I actually created a few before starting this presentation. And we've got a file status category. File status giving us access to different types of files based on their status. So here are deleted files, we've got some data carved files, we've got bad extensions, all these populated depending on your choices when you process the case and so forth. Okay, the next tab over, we'll leave the rest of the overview tab for later. Looks like everything else here is the same as you've already seen on the Explore tab. The next tab over would be the Email tab, and this is where all of the contents are filtered down by their email container. So any email that is found on the drive in a container that we can process is put here on the Email tab for you. So here's an Outlook PST. I can simply drill down into that Outlook PST, and I can find one of the mails. Here's a message that is rendered in HTML for you, and it actually has some attachments, and you can see those attachments right here in the attachments window. So all this is the same type of functionality as in the 1X world. So I can bookmark these messages and so forth right from this window. The next tab over is the Graphics tab, and the Graphics tab is very similar to the Explore tab with the exception of a thumbnail view right here in the top. So I've got the same evidence tree, and I can go ahead and do a quick pick right at this location and get everything in the list. However, the view on this tab has been filtered down to graphics only. So while there might have been a Word document or something present on the Explore tab at this location, it will not be because I'm filtering to only graphics files. And we call the filter that is applied to the Graphics tab, and to any tab for that matter, a frame set filter. So the filter I mentioned up here in the top, this is a global filter that would be applied across the tool to all of the tabs. When we apply a tool to a specific tab, when we apply a filter to a specific tab, we call that a frame set filter. And you can see right down here at the bottom, we have a frame set filter applied to the Graphics tab, and that frame set filter is called Graphics Files. So if I go to the Filter menu and pull that down and down to Frame Set Filter, you will see this is where I would choose a filter for just a specific tab, and the Graphics Files filter has been applied to the Graphics tab. So in here we can see all the different graphics that are available, and I've got a thumbnail for each one. I can check any ones that I would like to take action on. I can also check them in the list here as I would like, and the lists are synchronized, so it's the same data in both lists. I can also change the size of my thumbnails. So if I want to go to the View menu, down to Thumbnail Size, and I can choose from 4 different thumbnail sizes. So I'll go clear down to small, and you'll see that there are quite small thumbnails available here, and I can get quite a few of them. Now don't forget that this thumbnail view is a docking pane, so I can simply drag this pane free, move it over to another monitor, and expand it on that other monitor for much more real estate. So I'll go ahead and put that back where it was. Let me change the thumbnail size back to its default. And everything else on the Graphics tab works the same. The next tab over is the Bookmark tab, and this would be where any bookmarks that you create are stored. So I've got a group of bookmarks here. I've got one that contains documents, any documents or images of documents that I found during my investigation. Another containing any illegal pictures, and I've got a few illegal pictures here, and another one containing mail. So I just went through and made a few of these bookmarks prior to starting this presentation. Something to note, and we'll get into a complete description of bookmarking later, but something to note here is that in each of these bookmarks, I can now document a comment about the entire bookmark, but also an individual comment about each file in that bookmark. So I've gone and put one comment for each one of the files except for this one that I forgot, so let me just add that in right now. And there we go. So now each one has its own comment. You can also supplement files in. So if I had a file external to my case that I wanted to add in as a supplemental file, I could do that right here within the bookmark. So each bookmark can contain its own list of supplemental files. In addition to that, I can select different sections of text in a document and save those selections right here in this section of the bookmark. So each item can have multiple file selections within that item. And we'll get into all of that in a separate presentation. So this is the Bookmark tab, and we would generate reports based on this information. Next over is the Live Search tab, and this is where we would conduct any kind of live searching. So I would do text search, hex search, pattern searches, regular expressions, all that kind of stuff from the Live Search tab. and we will get into a separate presentation on searching also. You simply enter in a search term, and you would hit add and search to spawn a live search. So now in the background, FTK2 has begun a live search of the data for the results of cat. Now when I created my case, I actually took the time to index my case, and so I can utilize the index search, which has two subtabs, the Oracle index and the DT search index. Now I chose the DT search index, so I can simply type the word cat in here, and I instantaneously will get results for any occurrences of that particular string. Now I know that cat happens to exist 20 times in 10 different files, so I can go ahead and hit add, and I can go ahead and look at those hits. Now there are any number of ways that I can go ahead and add to this search query. Right now it's just the word cat, but I could expand on that utilizing compound searches for things like cat and dog, or cat but not dog, or cat within 10 words of dog, all kinds of things that are available to us with DT search expressions. Once I've got my hits, I can go ahead and open them up here. I'll expand out this single hit in an index.dat. Click on that and you'll see that I've got the highlighted hit for that particular item. You can go through hits in groups, you can delete them in groups, and so forth. All of that we'll get into in a separate module on searching. And then lastly, I've got my predefined tab that I made earlier. That would be the Ken tab. So that pretty much takes care of the FTK2 interface overview, and we'll have separate presentations that will go into other functions and features of the tool.